Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined by our good friend Austin Price of VolQuest and On3 at Austin Priceless, where you find him covering Tennessee athletics on Twitter. Austin, what's up? How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you all doing?
Good.
We are great. We are close to Tennessee football, and after a scrimmage at Neyland Stadium on Friday night, Austin, who would you give the advantage to, or is there an advantage between the offense and the defense as Tennessee took to Neyland Stadium?
I think Nico's going to start, guys. I think
Perfect.
I don't want to go on too big of a limb. I think that's going to be who it is. I think he edged out Gaston Moore. Defense normally wins these scrimmages, especially early in fall camp every year, no matter who the coach is. And I would tell you that's probably, kind of how that went down. I mean, half the offense didn't even go. I mean, you had certain receivers out, half the O-line, especially the tackles, didn't go. And, Rodney Garner's group, which is about, 67 deep, they had all their guys go. So, it was a little bit of a mismatch from a standpoint of just, availability. But Tennessee's offense did make some plays and hung in there. And, you had some guys like Ethan Davis and Nathan Leacock and Deshaun Bishop, get praised afterwards. And, I think the offense will be just fine. Just got to get some guys back, which Tennessee would love to see that happen by the second scrimmage, which is coming up on Thursday morning.
And Austin, we keep reading a lot about Gerod McCoy, the transfer corner who continues to turn some heads. How much confidence do you feel like this staff has in him at a position where they really need some guys to step up in a big way?
Well, I think they have a ton of confidence in him. They loved him when he got here in spring. Obviously, they liked him a lot when they, grabbed him out of the transfer portal from Oregon State and kept him from going back to his home state of Texas A&M. But I think, spring, they fell in love with him even more. That's only picked up in fall camp. I mean, he just continues to make plays. He's a great teammate, and, you expect to see, number 3, run around the defensive backfield a lot this fall as he's just become a really consistent player for Willie Martinez and Tim Banks.
So, Austin, at the tight end position, I know Tennessee football putting the videos out of Miles Kitselman, the transfer from Alabama. You mentioned Ethan Davis, Holden Stays, the Notre Dame transfer. In your mind, what does that rotation look like week 1 when Tennessee plays Chattanooga as those 3 continue to battle for time and Davis continues to just look like a totally different guy?
Well, I think it changes by the day. I think going into the scrimmage, I would have told you Miles Kitselman. Coming out of the scrimmage, you could say Ethan Davis. Not that Kitselman did anything wrong. I think Ethan Davis had a really strong scrimmage. And then it could easily be by next week, it could be Holden Stays. I think that this is a really close competition. Tennessee likes all 3. All 3 provide something different. All 3 are going to play. And so I think, back when you went into spring practice, you thought, okay, this is Holden Stays and Ethan Davis. And Miles Kitselman was he's just a nice depth piece they brought in from Alabama, just kind of, give him a little more depth on the back end in case they get an injury. And then Miles Kitselman ended up being really, really good and surprising a ton of people in spring. And, he could easily be Tennessee's starter coming up here in just over 2 weeks. So I think they're all 3 going to play. I think this is a nice luxury to have if you're Alec Ablin and Joey Halsley and Josh Heupel. And I expect Tennessee to use all those guys wisely, but they all kind of bring a little something different. They all have, kind of a different skill set, and I think that's kind of where this thing's at right now as we sit here, mid-August.
Austin Price of On3 and VolQuest with us this morning. Austin, what I didn't realize is those 100-play scrimmages or 120-play scrimmages that we had, coaches correlated them to preseason games, right? And that's what Coach Heupel said this past weekend. With that, they had some trial runs of some new rules, man. Did you get much information from Coach Heupel on the headset, man, the 2-minute warning, and the use of iPads on the sideline?
Well, I think it's just funny, and Coach Heupel referenced, Ramon, the fact that the coaches are going to be the ones that adjust to the iPads on the sideline. They're going to be the ones that have to figure it out because the kids have been doing that. Yeah. Like at the high school level, you go over there on a Friday night at any high school in the mid-state or here in Knoxville, and most teams have like a TV down on the on the sideline, and they're under a tent, and they're watching it on iPads. I mean, like, this is not a new part of the game, but it's new to college football. And so I just envision, like, if you ever watch my dad or anybody like my dad's age try to work an iPad or an iPhone, sometimes it's funny. And like, I can just imagine the frustration that sits in down the sidelines at times with some of these older coaches. But, I think it only, helps the game. It speeds up the game. It helps the kids learn. It's a visual learning. I think the communication is obviously, a big deal with the communication in the helmets. I think it allows coaches to, I think Lane called it a cheat code, but I think just as much on defense, it allows, Tim Banks to, set in the ear of Keenan Peely and, kind of direct him on what to do, what he sees from the box. So I think that all these changes are really good. The 2-minute warning, I don't think anybody's really going to like that. I mean, we have enough stoppages in college football as it is. So, but the other ones I think are very, very beneficial.
No doubt. Austin, when you look at this backup center position, and they had some real opportunities this past weekend with the scrimmage, and you said another one coming up Thursday, man, where is Vyson Lang or William Satterwhite when it comes down to those guys being young dudes trying to find their way in the university? Because that can be hard, but, like, are they actually giving themselves chances, to really be the 6 or 7 rotation guy for the O-line?
Yeah, I don't think they're there yet, Ramon. I think if something happened to Cooper Mays tomorrow, I think you'd see Dane Davis be the emergency guy. Could they do it? Yeah, they could, but I still don't think that they're there yet. And I think Satterwhite's eventually going to pass Vyson Lang. Like, I think that's coming sooner rather than later. Even a guy like Jesse Perry, I think, is going to be somebody that Tennessee gives a look to. At center, he's done a little bit of that during fall camp. So that's the most important thing this season, and really, for the next several months, is figuring out who the future is going to be. I don't think Tennessee really wants to have to go to the portal if they can avoid it. And so figuring out who your center of the future is this fall, whether it be the next few weeks in fall camp or into the season, is one of the biggest things, behind the scenes storylines that you should be following.
In that same context, man, you mentioned Nico Iamaleava as a starter at quarterback. I think that's breaking news right here for us. But it's cool having Nico, right? But I'm not worried, but I'm hearing his left side is really settling in with how Lance Hurd is going about practice, man. Like, he really has a switch. I heard he's talking trash now. He's one of those types of dudes. Are you seeing him settle in a little bit more? And has he actually signed his agreement with NCAA football to be on the game yet?
That part I don't know. I would imagine that's coming. But, I do think he is settling in more and more as he gets healthy. He had that knee cleanup procedure back in July, which is why he's been kind of slow. It's why he didn't scrimmage the other night. They're just kind of bringing him along slowly, but he's doing a lot more in practice than he was early, doing a lot more, just to kind of, I guess, become accustomed to being that left tackle in this offense. And I would imagine he would have a real shot to go and give you some reps on Thursday morning scrimmage. Getting closer and closer. John Campbell got a little bit of a knee cleanup type stuff too. None of this stuff is super worrisome, but it could be something they have to, especially with Campbell, something they have to kind of monitor all year long. But Hurd should be close to full go here in the next, week or so. And so this is a young man who has all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of putting it together and, being able to stay out on the field. And like I said, he had that knee cleanup procedure back at the end of July, which is going to allow him to be full go for the year.
Austin Price of VolQuest joining us this morning, talking about the Tennessee Volunteers as they prepare for their season. So Josh Heupel did say he really was pleased with that secondary in the first scrimmage. Austin, what stood out to you with maybe some things that are leaning in a positive direction?
Well, I think you like, where Tennessee's at up front on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, their defensive line is just ridiculously deep. And I think that's going to benefit them all year long because, as defensive linemen get tired, they're going to be able to rotate guys in to go against the offensive linemen who are getting equally as tired. And the defensive line is going to be just as fresh and just as good. Like, there's not a drop-off. They go 3 deep, and it's not a thing. They are so deep on the defensive line. I think that's a huge deal. I really like them at linebacker. I think what Arian Carter and T. Lander and Keenan Peely are going to do once the season gets here is a big deal. Now, again, Peely, I don't expect him to scrimmage at all because there's no need. Like, they need to keep him healthy. And so, like, I think you'll see him kind of, they'll take the wrapping off, get Chattanooga a little bit and have him ready for NC State. Offensively, I think you're still trying to figure out, the continuity on the O-line because you had some guys out. And I think that's the biggest question mark as we head into scrimmage 2 is just getting some of those players back. You like the depth at receiver. You like the depth at tight end. And you like the young pieces at running back. But at the end of the day, they're still super inexperienced. And you're not going to be able to get them experience until the season starts. So there's some things you feel really good about. There's some things you feel good about, but you don't know. And I think that's kind of where you're at, both in the secondary and at running back, but that you don't know until you get out there and the bullets are flying live coming up here in a couple of weeks.
You kind of joked about at the beginning, the quarterback. We know it's Nico Iamaleava, but behind that, in the sample size that you've seen during camp and these scrimmages, how comfortable do you feel with that backup position right now and those other quarterbacks?
Well, I think you have to feel as comfortable as you can, knowing that you've got a walk-on in Gaston Moore as your backup. I mean, he knows the offense. He makes plays. Do I think Tennessee could survive a game if he had to come in the game? Yes. Do I think they could survive a month to 6 weeks of a run without Nico? That'd be a little more of a stretch. Mm-hmm. And so, Gaston's somebody who knows the offense. He throws it plenty good enough. He's a nice, solid player. He'll be Tennessee's backup. Jake Merklinger continues to progress, and we'll see how much he can push Gaston Moore. But I would venture to say, though, if when push comes to shove, it will be Gaston Moore as Tennessee's backup probably all season long. But again, they'll continue to compete, throughout the season and practice. But I think the coaching staff is very comfortable with what Gaston does every day in practice, his role in the room, and that's why he would be kind of in the position he's in.
VolQuest Austin Price with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will at Austin Priceless on Twitter. Austin, we have finally made it for the end of the David Sanders sweepstakes this upcoming weekend. This long saga is finally about to come to an end. How has Tennessee gone about trying to close the deal with him, and how positive is the Tennessee momentum at this point when you got on 3's too Wilt Fong and Chad Simmons sending in the predictions for the Vols to get his services this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee's been in a really good spot for a long time. They've done a tremendous job of just kind of being very present, having the same demeanor, recruiting him the same way. He really likes the coaching staff in Knoxville, loves Glenn Ellerbe, loves Josh Heupel, loves players in the class like George McIntyre. So, while others have maybe had Ohio State or Clemson, if you've been a member of VolQuest, you know that Austin's had Tennessee in this one for not just a month, but multiple months. Right. And this is something that, the kid I think just fell in love with everything about the Vols and likes the atmosphere, the laid back, the way Glenn coaches, and Tennessee's just done a tremendous job there. So they have a ton of momentum heading into the announcement, which will be at 1:15 coming up on Saturday. And so the kid obviously, wants to keep this thing, wants to have some suspense here, and he's done a nice job of putting pictures out on Instagram and Ohio State clothes and this and that. And he dropped his line yesterday. So you can go get the David Sanders Jr. apparel with his logo if you so choose. And so I mean he's having a good time with it. But the biggest thing I know, he wants to go win a state title, and getting the decision done coming up on Saturday will allow him to focus on his senior season, which actually I think kicks off on Friday.
Well, Austin, that's where I was actually headed to, man. Like, he's got Vols fans worried, okay? Like, he's releasing all this white and red stuff and Ohio State gloves on. Like, Austin, you gotta say something to settle the people, man. Come on. Come on, Austin.
If you follow me, you should.
I was going to say, I think he did just say something to settle people.
There it is.
I was looking at his comments on his merch he released last night, and all I kept seeing, but he's going to Ohio State. And I was just like, gotta know Austin.
I love it.
This is true. You know, in the family, they're just sweet people. I mean, some of my favorite people. They are just salt of the earth, good people. Always got big smiles on their face, big personalities. Just love life. David's the same way. And, I know he's excited to, finally get this over with. I think anybody that's covered it is excited for him to get this over with coming up on Saturday. And, we'll see what he finally announces coming up on Saturday. But, David has done a really good job with this thing. His parents have done a great job of kind of guiding him through it and kind of surrounding him and, keeping him away from some of the negatives of the process.
Well, Austin, tonight, our good friend Brent Hubbs is in Franklin with Mike Keith for a UT Alumni Association gathering at the Franklin Theater, telling stories about past and present Vols. Is there anything we need to make sure Brent and Mike discuss tonight? A specific story, Austin, that Brent needs to talk about with the people that maybe isn't David Sanders related tonight?
Hubbs is a treasure trove of stories, and he really turned almost into Rick Barnes. You just set him out there on your front porch and let him tell stories, and it's one of those things. So I don't want to tell him what stories to tell. He can dive into the bag and come up with plenty from the last 30 years that he's had to deal with. But he's a good one.
I love it. Going to be fun. Austin Price joins us every Tuesday morning here on the show as we get closer to Tennessee football. Austin, thank you as always, sir.
Appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great week.
Yes, sir.
You too, Austin.
Austin Price, calming the people down on David Sanders.
He's like, just listen to me. We'll be fine. All right?
He's saying everything but it, so
right.
There it is.
And when he says he loves the family, like, he's clearly gotten close with them, and that's always so cool to probably go through that whole recruiting process and really know, the family and what they've done to help him.
No doubt.
Between that and between the stories you will hear if you are at the Franklin Theater tonight, pretty good advertisement to sign up for a VolQuest subscription.
It is.
They have had I remember talking about David Sanders a year ago when he was first going to camp at Tennessee before his junior season, and how Tennessee was in good position for him. And now Saturday, it looks like all signs point to Tennessee adding its most highly touted offensive lineman since Trey Smith.
I thought she was going to say since Ramon Foster.
Ooh.
I kid.
I shouldn't have laughed that hard. That's on me.
But with that being said, though, you can still get your tickets to the Franklin Theater tonight to see Hubbs and Mike Keith. It's on Mike Keith's account. He's posted it. I've reposted it. We've posted it. Get there, man. It's always a great time. Always a great time for those two to have a conversation.
I'm planning on being in attendance.
Nice.
Yeah, are you?
It'd be a good time.
Big time. That's huge.
Love the Franklin Theater. If you've not been there, by the way, too, got a lot of good food options around there.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
Franklin Theater is like a cool, like older, timey kind of like old school theater vibe. It's very
Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Franklin's cool. It's always
It
cool.
is. Yes. Dope place. And you can hear some stories at night on the football field.
It'd be so cool. Yeah. Love it. 615-737-1045. We'll catch you up on headlines after this. You can submit a You're Not That Guy. Wide open to finish off hour 3, and we'll get you the latest out of the NFL coming up next.